blood from the atrium, then contracts to eject it through the aorta to the systemic circulation. The AV valves open to allow blood flow from the atria to the ventricles. When the ventricles contract, the AV valves close to prevent backflow. Simultaneously, ventricular contraction forces the semilunar valves open, allowing for blood ejection. When contraction finishes, the semilunar valves shut to prevent backflow from the arteries. Cardiac conduction. The cardiac conduction system delivers electrical impulses to the heart and stimulates contractions. Each impulse sets a normal rhythm of 60 to 100 beats per minute. The impulse travels through the heart really fast. It makes the heart muscles squeeze so that your heart can pump the blood. After that, the heart takes a little break. This is called repolarization, and it lets the heart get ready for the next beat. The signal then goes to the top part of the heart, called the atria, and tells them to squeeze. Before it goes to the bottom part of your heart, the signal takes a little break again at a place called the atrioventricular node. Then, the signal goes to the bottom part of your heart, making it squeeze really hard. When the bottom part squeezes, it pushes the blood out to your body through special doors called valves. Doctors can use a special machine called an ECG to listen to these electric signals in your heart. It helps them make sure your heart is working just right. Cardiac output. Cardiac output is like the amount of blood your heart pushes into your body to keep it healthy. It's determined by two things: how fast your heart beats, heart rate, and how much blood it pushes out with each beat, stroke volume. The first thing that affects stroke volume is how much blood is in your heart right before it squeezes. This depends on how much blood comes back to your heart from your body through the veins. It also depends on how big your heart is and how well it can stretch. The second thing is called ejection fraction, which is the part of the blood in your heart that actually gets pumped out when your heart squeezes. This depends on how strong your heart's squeeze is and how hard it has to push against the blood in your arteries. After your heart squeezes, the leftover blood in your heart is called end systolic volume.
Spotlight shine bright all on me. Got the internet turn like, who is she? Whole world watching me about.
So, in simple terms, cardiac output is how much blood your heart pumps to keep your body healthy, and it's influenced by how fast your heart beats, how much blood fills your heart before it squeezes, and how well your heart can pump that blood out. An average adult human brain is about the size of a medium cauliflower, measuring roughly 15 centimeters or 6 inches in length. It typically weighs approximately 1.3 to 1.4 kilograms. It is surrounded and protected by cerebrospinal fluid, which cushions the brain and helps to remove waste. Here is a brief overview of all parts of the brain. We will discuss every part in more detail later in the video. Cerebrum. Responsible for higher cognitive functions, cerebellum, coordinates motor movements, balance, and posture. Brainstem. Controls heart rate, breathing, digestion, and sleeping. Thalamus. Acts as a relay center, directing sensory and motor signals to the appropriate parts of the cerebral cortex. Hypothalamus. Regulates hunger, thirst, body temperature, and the release of hormones. Limbic system. Contains structures like the amygdala and hippocampus and is responsible for emotions, memories, and certain aspects of behavior. Pituitary gland. Releases hormones that regulate several physiological processes, including growth and metabolism. Basal ganglia. Is a group of nuclei that play key roles in movement regulation, habit formation, and certain aspects of cognition and emotion. Corpus callosum. Facilitates communication between the left and right sides of the brain. Ventricles. Produce and circulate cerebrospinal fluid to cushion the brain and remove waste. Now we will discuss all these parts in a bit more detail to understand what are these and how they work. Cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, accounting for approximately 85% of its weight. It is responsible for most higher-order cognitive functions and can be described in further detail as follows. 1. Hemispheres. The cerebrum is divided into two symmetrical halves, known as the left and right hemispheres. These two halves are separated by a deep groove called the longitudinal fissure but are connected by a thick band of nerve fibers known as the corpus callosum. Left hemisphere is typically associated with logical thinking, analytical processing, and language. In most right-handed individuals, the left hemisphere is dominant for language. Right hemisphere is more involved with creativity, spatial ability, artistic, and musical skills. It also plays a role in interpreting visual information and processing emotions. Lobes of the cerebrum. The cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, is divided into four main lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. Frontal lobe, located at the front of the brain, it's responsible for executive functions such as reasoning, decision-making, planning, and problem-solving. It also oversees voluntary movement, speech production, and aspects of personality and behavior. Parietal lobe. Positioned behind the frontal lobe and above the temporal lobe, it processes sensory information from the body such as touch, taste, and spatial positioning. The somatosensory cortex, which maps tactile information from the body, is located in this lobe. Temporal lobe. Found on the sides of the brain, near the ears, it's associated with processing auditory information, understanding language, and the formation of long-term memories. It also has roles in recognizing faces and processing emotional responses. Occipital lobe. Located at the back of the brain, it's primarily responsible for vision. This includes processing visual information from the eyes, interpreting colors, and recognizing shapes and movement. Gyri and sulci. The surface of the cerebrum is highly convoluted, consisting of ridges, gyri, and grooves, sulci. These convolutions increase the surface area of the cerebrum, allowing more neurons to fit in and enhancing cognitive abilities. Cerebral cortex. This is the outermost layer of the cerebrum and is composed of gray matter. It is densely packed with nerve cells and is responsible for higher cognitive functions, including thinking, perceiving, producing, and understanding language. The thickness and structure of the cerebral cortex can vary across individuals and has been associated with various cognitive abilities and personality traits. White matter. Located beneath the cerebral cortex, white matter is made up of myelinated or insulated axons, which are nerve fibers that connect different parts of the brain to each other. The myelin gives this region its white appearance and helps accelerate the transmission of signals between neurons. Basal ganglia. Though often considered separately, the basal ganglia are a group of nuclei deep within the cerebrum. They play a crucial role in movement regulation, habit formation, and certain aspects of cognition and emotion. Limbic system. Also nested within the cerebrum, this system comprises the amygdala, hippocampus, and other structures vital for emotion, behavior, and long-term memory. The cerebrum, with its intricate structures and networks, is central to human consciousness, enabling us to think, learn, create, and experience emotions. It remains a focal point in neuroscience research as we strive to unravel the mysteries of human cognition and behavior. Cerebellum. The cerebellum, often referred to as the little brain due to its appearance and size relative to the cerebrum, is an essential structure located underneath the occipital lobes of the cerebrum at the back of the brain. Here's a detailed breakdown of cerebellum. Structure and functions. The cerebellum is divided into two hemispheres, similar to the cerebrum, and has a finely convoluted surface, which helps maximize its surface area. These convolutions are made up of folds known as folia. In the middle, a narrow worm-like structure called the vermis connects the two hemispheres. The cerebellum plays a key role in fine-tuning motor activities. While the cerebrum might initiate a movement, the cerebellum makes adjustments to ensure the movement is smooth and precise. It helps maintain balance and proper posture, particularly when the body is in motion. The cerebellum is essential for tasks that require practice and repetition, such as riding a bicycle or playing a musical instrument. More recent research has revealed the cerebellum's involvement in certain cognitive and emotional functions. This includes processes like attention, language, and regulating fear and pleasure responses. Layers. The cerebellar cortex, which is the outer layer of the cerebellum, is made up of three distinct layers. Molecular layer. The outermost layer containing few neurons but many extensions from other cells. Purkinje layer. Contains Purkinje cells, large neurons that send inhibitory projections to the deep cerebellar nuclei. Granular layer. The innermost layer made up of tiny granule cells that send excitatory projections up to the molecular layer. Deep cerebellar nuclei. Embedded within the cerebellum are clusters of gray matter known as the deep cerebellar nuclei. These serve as the primary output cantors of the cerebellum, communicating its processed information to other brain regions. Peduncle.
इस चार्ट को देखो, अगर मैं 10 ट्रेडर्स को पूछूंगा कि यहां पर कौन से पॉइंट्स है जहां पर एंट्रीज बन रही है, तो शायद कुछ ऐसी मार्किंग्स होगी। पर असलियत तो यह है कि ये सारे ट्रेड्स अल्टीमेटली फेल ट्रेड्स होंगे और रियल एंट्रीज तो कहीं और ही बन रही थी। इसका मतलब यह है कि रिटेल ट्रेडर्स का मोस्ट जो नजरिया है मार्केट्स का, वो ऐसी जगहों पे है जहां पर इंस्टीट्यूशंस चाहते हैं कि वो ट्रेड करें। इंस्टीट्यूशंस आपका स्टॉप लॉस लेने आएंगे और आप उसी तरीके से मार्केट्स को देख रहे हो जैसे कोई भी नॉर्मल एवरेज रिटेल ट्रेडर देखता है। बट अगर आपको इंस्टीट्यूशन, स्मार्ट मनी, हेज फंड मैनेजर्स, पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजर्स और क्वांट ट्रेडर्स की तरह ट्रेड करना है तो कुछ चीजें बदलनी पड़ेगी। ये वो सारे पॉइंट्स है जहां पर असली इंस्टीट्यूशनल ट्रेड मौजूद था, पर आप कहीं और देख रहे थे। और इसका रीजन ये है कि आप अभी भी वो ओल्ड स्कूल चीजों को फॉलो कर रहे हो जहां पर आप मूव के बाद एंटर कर रहे हो और उससे कुछ नहीं होगा। मैं आपको एक 2 घंटे का वेबिनार फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट कंडक्ट कर रहा हूं जहां पर मैं इस पूरी इंस्टीट्यूशनल स्मार्ट मनी स्ट्रेटजीज को, जिससे मैंने ये ट्रेड जहां पर यहां पर मेरी एंट्री है, इस जगह मेरा एग्जिट है, यहां पर एक और ट्रेड है जहां मेरी एंट्री यहां है मूव से पहले, और मेरा एग्जिट जहां पर शायद आप अपनी एंट्री बनाने का सोचते, और ऐसे कई सारे ट्रेड्स हैं। ये मेरा वेरीफाइड पीएनएल है और मैं इस वेबिनार में इस पूरी स्ट्रैटेजी को कैसे एग्जीक्यूट करना है, एंट्री, एग्जिट, स्टॉप लॉस, टारगेट कहां प्लेस करना है, ट्रेड मैनेजमेंट, स्टॉक सिलेक्शन, ट्रेडिंग साइकोलॉजी, पोजीशन साइजिंग, सारी चीजें कवर करने वाला हूं एब्सोल्युटली फॉर फ्री। उसके साथ में आपको 10,000 रुपए से ज्यादा के बोनसेस, जिसमें स्क्रीनर, स्कैनर, वॉच लिस्ट, सारी चीजें देने वाला हूं। सो अगली गलती करना।
The cerebellum communicates with other parts of the brain via three paired structures known as peduncles. Superior cerebellar peduncle connects the cerebellum to the midbrain and thalamus, primarily carrying output from the cerebellum to other brain regions. Middle cerebellar peduncle connects the cerebellum to the pons and is the primary input route to the cerebellum. Inferior cerebellar peduncle connects the cerebellum to the medulla oblongata, facilitating both input and output between the cerebellum and other brain regions. Despite cerebellum's smaller size compared to the cerebrum, the cerebellum contains more neurons and plays a crucial role in a variety of tasks, ensuring they are executed with precision and grace. Brainstem. The brainstem is located at the base of the brain. It serves as the bridge connecting the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. The brainstem is critical for basic life functions, such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. It's involved in reflexes, including those that regulate balance and hearing. It plays a role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle. The brainstem serves as a conduit, with ascending tracts transmitting sensory information to the brain and descending tracts sending motor information to the body. Cranial nerves 3 through 12 originate from the brainstem, controlling functions such as facial expressions, swallowing, and sensation in the face. Here's a detailed look at brainstem. Components. The brainstem can be divided into three main structures, each with specific features and functions. Midbrain or mesencephalon. The most superior portion of the brainstem, the midbrain, is located beneath the thalamus and above the pons. Prominent structures include the cerebral peduncles, which contain motor and sensory tracts, and the corpora quadrigemina, composed of the superior and inferior colliculi. The superior colliculi are involved in visual reflexes, while the inferior colliculi are associated with auditory processing. The midbrain houses the red nucleus, involved in motor coordination, and the substantia nigra, which plays a role in reward and movement. The midbrain contains nuclei for cranial nerves 3 and 4. Pons. Positioned between the medulla and the midbrain, the pons appears as a bulging region on the anterior part of the brainstem. It primarily acts as a relay station, transmitting information between the cerebrum, cerebellum, and spinal cord. The pons also plays a role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle and houses nuclei for cranial nerves 5 through 8. Medulla oblongata. Located closest to the spinal cord, the medulla oblongata is the most inferior part of the brainstem. It regulates several vital and involuntary functions, such as heartbeat, blood pressure, and respiration. Any significant damage to this region can be life-threatening. It also contains the pyramids, which are two elongated ridges on its anterior surface where motor fibers cross over or decussate. This decussation is why each hemisphere of the brain controls the opposite side of the body. The medulla also houses nuclei for cranial nerves 8 through 12. Reticular formation. Spanning the length of the brainstem, the reticular formation is a network of interconnected neurons. It's vital for consciousness, sleep regulation, and overall alertness. Damage to this area can result in coma. The reticular formation also filters sensory input to decide what information is relayed to the cerebral cortex. Thalamus. The thalamus is located in the center of the brain, just above the brainstem, and is nestled between the cerebral cortex and the midbrain. Each hemisphere of the brain contains a thalamus. It is composed of two symmetrical egg-shaped masses of gray matter, and these are surrounded by a thin layer of white matter called the external medullary lamina. It performs various functions. Relay station. One of the primary roles of the thalamus is to relay sensory information from peripheral receptors and the spinal cord to the appropriate regions of the cerebral cortex. It processes and transmits inputs from all the senses, except smell, to associated cortical areas. Motor functions. The thalamus also receives information from the cerebellum and basal ganglia and relays it to the motor areas of the cerebral cortex, aiding in the coordination and modulation of movement. Sleep and wakefulness. It's involved in regulating states of sleep and wakefulness. The thalamus plays a role in controlling the sleep spindle activity during the sleep cycle. Consciousness. The thalamus contributes to consciousness and alertness, particularly through its connections with the cerebral cortex and the reticular formation in the brainstem. Pain perception. The thalamus is also involved in processing pain signals and can modulate the perception of pain. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small but crucial region of the brain that plays an integral role in connecting the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus is located below the thalamus, approximately above the pituitary gland, and forms the lower walls and floor of the third ventricle in the brain. It's about the size of an almond and consists of various nuclei and nerve fibers. The hypothalamus is connected to many parts of the central nervous system, including the cerebral cortex, thalamus, basal ganglia, and limbic system. The pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum, or pituitary stalk. Through this connection, the hypothalamus can regulate a wide variety of bodily functions by influencing hormone release from the pituitary. Hypothalamus perform various functions, for example, endocrine system regulation, autonomic nervous system regulation, temperature regulation, hunger and thirst regulation, sleep-wake cycles and circadian rhythms, emotion and behavior, and memory. Limbic system. The limbic system is a collection of structures in the brain involved in various functions including emotion, behavior, motivation, long-term memory, and olfaction. Limbic system is a group of interconnected structures. Here are some of the primary components. Amygdala. A small, almond-shaped set of neurons located deep within the brain's medial temporal lobe. It's key in processing emotions, especially those related to fear and pleasure. Hippocampus. Located in the medial temporal lobe, the hippocampus plays a critical role in forming new memories and connecting emotions and senses, such as smell and sound, to memories. Thalamus. While primarily a relay station for sensory and motor signals to the cerebral cortex, the thalamus does have connections with the limbic system and is involved in some of its functions, especially in relaying sensory information. Hypothalamus. Situated beneath the thalamus, the hypothalamus regulates vital functions like hunger, thirst, body temperature, and sleep. It also helps in controlling mood and emotions and is integrally linked to the endocrine system. Cingulate gyrus. An arc-shaped region that plays a role in regulating aggressive behavior and linking behavioral outcomes to motivation. Parahippocampal gyrus. Surrounding the hippocampus, this region plays a role in memory encoding and retrieval. Basal ganglia. While often associated with movement, the basal ganglia have connections to the limbic system and play a role in certain emotional and cognitive functions. Olfactory bulbs. These are involved in the sense of smell, which can evoke strong emotional responses and memories. Pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, often termed the master gland, is a small, pea-sized structure that plays a crucial role in the human endocrine system. The pituitary gland is situated at the base of the brain, right below the hypothalamus, and is housed within a bony structure called the sella turcica of the sphenoid bone. It is attached to the hypothalamus by a thin stalk known as the infundibulum or pituitary stalk. The gland is divided into two primary sections, the anterior pituitary, or adenohypophysis, and the posterior pituitary, or neurohypophysis. Anterior pituitary, adenohypophysis. This lobe synthesizes and releases several hormones, regulated by releasing and inhibiting hormones sent from the hypothalamus via a portal blood system. Hormones produced and released by the anterior pituitary include growth hormone, thyroid-stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, prolactin, endorphins and enkephalins. Posterior pituitary, neurohypophysis. Unlike the anterior pituitary, which produces hormones, the posterior pituitary stores and releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus. Hormones released by the posterior pituitary include oxytocin and vasopressin. Basal ganglia. The basal ganglia are a group of nuclei located deep within the cerebral hemispheres that play crucial roles in a range of functions, including the control of voluntary motor movements, procedural learning, habit formation, and emotion, among others. The basal ganglia are composed of several interconnected nuclei, which includes striatum, globus pallidus, subthalamic nucleus, and substantia nigra. The basal ganglia have several pathways that process and relay information. Direct pathway, indirect pathway, hyperdirect pathway. Proper balance between these pathways is crucial for smooth motor control. Function. Basal ganglia perform several functions, which include motor control. The basal ganglia, in coordination with the cerebral cortex, thalamus, and brainstem, help smooth out and coordinate movements. They're involved in the initiation and termination of movements, ensuring movements are fluid and purposeful. Procedural learning. They play a role in the learning of routines or sequences, especially motor sequences. Emotions and behavior. The basal ganglia are connected to the limbic system and have been implicated in the control of emotional behaviors and responses. Cognitive functions. They contribute to certain aspects of cognitive processing, decision-making, and task switching.